Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back with another tech news. It's been confirmed by GamerNexus. By the way, thanks for all the effort he did, but it confirms that Nvidia's new driver are causing issue. Also said that this is the worst launch I have ever seen for Nvidia. Again, as I said, thanks for the investigation and effort he's gone through just to verify on Nvidia's recent driver issue that we all reported few times, included myself. And I was going to use the new drivers, and I'm using the RTX 30 series GPU, but Nvidia, when releases the drivers or hotfix, they didn't even bother to include our older GPU issue of black screen freezing and blue screens of death until GamerNexus replicated the same issue, and it's without any doubt causing issue in older gen RTX 30, 40 as well as the newer 50 gen GPU. This issue was so persistent that even some game developers recommended downgrading the drivers to older version, going back to pre-RTX 50 launch events driver version 566.36 to be exact. This is a massive problem for Nvidia when even game developers sometimes of games that Nvidia heavily promotes, such as Enjoy, confirmed that there are problem with the new drivers that can only be fixed by such changes. GamerNexus did a lot of research online and go through many of the forums where gamers reported such problems, and they were able to find some common problems among all reported issues. Also, a lot of issues were mitigated just by downgrading to the older version of the drivers. In my case, I downgraded to 566.36. that worked for me and solved my black screen issue. But the older driver is not something good that Half-Life game take, as it needs the new drivers for DLSS 4 to work. Keep that in mind that new games are also out with the new DLSS 4, and downgrading is not something without major trade. Like in this particular case, you won't be able to use DLSS 4. There are some major issues that are reported with some games like Star Wars Outlaw. Selecting the resume may cause crash. In Marvel Rivals, enabling frame generation causes crash. In Cyberpunk 2077, crashing when loading into the game. And in Shadow of Tomb Raider, in-game benchmark crashes, and the error is DXGI error, and fix was rolling back to older driver. And waking up your system from sleep may also cause the black screen issue, and that issue is not present in the older version 566. I'm using the 566.36, again repeating myself, and it really is working good. GamerNexus also discovers that sometimes enabling the Nvidia features like DLSS for frame generation of G-Sync may be the culprit. Also recommends to disable this feature to see if the issue is resolved. I have also researched and read somewhere in the forum. I don't know the exact website, but if I find the website, I will link it in the comment down below, that using the DLSS 4 at the same time with the frame generation, and you have the G-Sync, that is causing the issue, that they change the monitor and disable the DLSS 4 solve the issue. But that worked for him. I don't know if that's the case for everyone, but that's what he did, and that's how he solved his issue. However, Nvidia is feeling some heat and criticism from consumers who have spent thousands of dollars, and now they have to go through this useless driver issue rather than enjoying the new RTX 50 series. Well, that says a lot about Nvidia, that genuinely they are not interested in gaming community as they were once, and now they are more interested in AI sector than in the gaming community. To remind you guys, the famous black screen issue saw as many as 5 freaking different fixes through several drivers, but Nvidia never mentioned that these problems were completely solved, nor that more fixes are coming. It's like, don't talk about the issue and it will not exist, if that's what their mentality is. And if we talk about the consumers who spends thousands of dollars on your incomplete product, will not let this slide that easily. Don't be cocky like Intel. They once said that we are not going to take the fall, and it's your processor, and we are not going to return, and see where Intel is standing now. For now, it's a great idea to downgrade to 566.36 driver version. I'm using it and it's very stable, and you can enjoy the games until they sort out the issue and solve the issue, and then you can download it. But rather than that, I'm not in favor of using the newer driver 570, 570.72, etc, etc. To me, the stable version is 566.36. Try it and see if it works for you too. It's like Nvidia has become an issue magnet machine that attracts a lot of the issue, cause there is another issue, but this time around it's not the drivers, rather the flaw in hardware. And if you guys say that it's one or two, and I may agree with you regarding the quantity, but this is not the first time we are seeing the burn connector. Let me remind you that 3090, 3080 and a lot of them sees the burn connector issue, and they didn't even acknowledge the issue with 12-pin connector engineering flaw. I mean, come on, what's wrong with the 8-pin connector? AMD is using it, and see how greatly 9070 XT is beating 5070, 5070 Ti, and in some cases head to head with 5080. So why obsessed with these lame connector? I mean, if you are using an adapter that again needs 2 to 8-pin connector, why bother? Just implement the 8-pin, and it worked so good for all these years. I thought that they will revert back to 8-pin, but no, they are still using the useless flaw of engineering. And when report the issue, vendor says simply the cable was not pushed all the way in, you need to hammer it down. Yeah, that's how bad this connector is. Now here is one redditor reveals a new case of burn connector, and the user was using the MSI Gaming Trio RTX 5090 along with the Corsair SF1000L power supply. And what's more concerning here is that no cable extender was used, but only native cabling that came with power supply. That SF1000L has an ATX 3.1 power supply that includes a native 12 volt 2x6 cable in the set. As the editor says that I saw the melting cable posts and thought that I was safe if I stayed away from custom cables. Apparently it's still not safe to use the original manufacturer's cable. Now this is the first case of a burn connector in RTX 5090 Gaming Trio with a visibly melted connector, and the cable seems to have caught on fire. Doesn't appear safe to use any longer. Also that he didn't mess with any of the overclock settings and still burned connector. He also has to say that I originally thought the damage was limited to the GPU set, but after taking the build apart I saw even more damage on the PSU set, picture included, as we can see here in this picture. Yes, the bulge on the connector is melted plastic and what looks to be a cable that is burnt white. Here we go again guys, again Nvidia again with connector and the same issue. Okay guys, last up for today is, and that's an interesting one, AMD Radeon RX 9070 can be BIOS modded with XT firmware, surpasses reference RX 9070 XT when overclocked, and a member of the PC Games Hardware Forum are the first to try something new with the Radeon RX 9070. Although BIOS modding was very popular back in the day, however, GPU vendors are now locking down such modification quite strictly, meaning it is often very hard or even impossible to introduce changes to the card specs with such a simple switch. It turns out that at least some Radeon RX 9070 non-XT GPUs can be flashed with the 9070 XT BIOS. Basically, this enables the higher clocks and higher TGP, one of the most visible changes when comparing both variants of the RDNA 4 GPU. However, this doesn't change the core count or memory specs, the latter being identical on both SKUs already. The power and clock starved RX 9070 non-XT got new wings with the unlocked XT BIOS. Users are reporting that it is even possible to overclock the card further. There is no issue running the non-XT 970 cards with the XT BIOS at stock, adds one of the modders. Also, the card has scored 15 to 20% higher than stock RX 9070 non-XT. This is of course with overclocking, not out of the box experience. However, after flashing, the important detail is that this is already at or near RX 9070 XT level, and the performance gains are one thing, but there is also some drawbacks. For instance, ULPS mode does not seem to work and some freezes were encountered by one of the modder. However, some optimization the card seems to be stable and can beat reference 9070 XT cards. Such modes are very interesting and entertaining to watch. Gamers who were not able to purchase the RX 9070 might have opted for the cheaper card and now can consider upgrading the BIOS. Of course, this all has consequences and require a lot of work and optimization to have a stable GPU. But there was also a topic of physical changes between the 9070 and 9070 XT series. The latter were often shipped with the 3/8-pin power connector due to the increased power requirement on the overclock variants of the GPU. If anyone considered such mods, it may be important to only upgrade to the 9070 XT BIOS from the cards that also had two connectors. Otherwise, the card may have stability issues. Well, that's it for today, guys, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.